Hello again, and welcome to our video series of the biggest mistakes I see in scientific grant writing. This is video number 3, and we are going to talk about content-based mistakes. If you want to find a video on mistakes about relating to your reviewer, you can go to the first video in the series, link below. If you want a video on mistakes relating to the formatting of your grant, you can go to the second video, link below. And if you're interested in the fourth video on detail-based mistakes, please subscribe to the channel so you get those when they come out. And if you're ready to get started, I'm Casey Butler, this is ButlerSciComm, and let's see what these mistakes are. Okay, content-based mistakes in grant writing. So these are the mistakes related to the actual information that you choose to include in your grants. And one of the biggest questions I get about grants actually is how much information to include in the introduction and the previous work. And we're going to go straight then into the first mistake, which is just including way too much information in the introduction or in the preliminary data or previous work sections. And my fix here is to only include the absolute necessary information that you need to convey to the reviewer what they need to know. So how are we going to do this? Don't worry, I'm going to walk you through it here quickly. First, when people ask me how much information to include, my answer is usually less than you are. Okay, it is usually that you need to include much less. So I'm going to talk about this from two different angles here. First, I'm going to talk about the introductory information. And so the amount of introductory information you need is basically only what you need to convey the main problem and state of the field. So what I want you to do is start from your problem, okay? Why are you doing this grant? Why are you doing this research? And include enough information that you can make that clear, okay? A way to think about this as well, every single paragraph you are including in this introductory background information section should have some kind of statement of a gap included in that paragraph that is a direct statement saying like, however, this is still a problem because, or however, this has not been tested in humans, or however, this has not yet been done in vivo, or this still needs to be done in vivo. Whatever it is, there's going to be something missing from the current state of the field, which is the whole entire reason why you are doing this work and why this work exists. So here, work on including only the amount of information that you need to fully explain a problem that exists that your research is the direct answer to. So here's something to remember to keep in mind. Your proposal is not designed to make you, the grant reviewer, an expert in your topic. Your proposal is designed to convince them to give you money to do this research. So you don't have to teach them everything about the field. You only have to teach them what they need to know to understand why this work is important, why you are deciding to work on it. So hone your introductory paragraphs based on those gaps, those problem statements. If you have introductory paragraphs where you have no problem statements, that's a good indication that you probably don't need those paragraphs in this, in your introduction. Also then, with your preliminary work, this is going to be slightly different. Either your preliminary work or preliminary work in the field that helps you explain why you think this proposal is going to work. Here, you might have something slightly different in the paragraphs. Instead of having each paragraph contain a one-sentence gap statement, you might instead have a one-sentence meaning or proof of concept statement. So that means instead of saying, hey, this is a problem that still exists, you're saying, meaning that we could do this experiment, or meaning this is something that should be studied, or meaning that our proposed method here is likely to work, okay? So here you want paragraphs that are either funneling your reader into here's a problem, and then you can state how you're going to solve it, or you want paragraphs that are saying, hey, this is what we want to do and how, this is why we think it would work, okay? So if your paragraphs don't have some kind of statement of gap or don't have some kind of statement of the direct impact or importance or meaning of this on your specific research project, then you probably don't need those paragraphs in the introduction or preliminary work sections. Next content-based mistake, the need for your proposed work is unclear. Here, this is actually a really easy fix and one that we just covered a little bit in the previous topic, but I'm going to make it very clear here right now. What we want to do in our research proposal is we want to have this introduction that convinces the reviewer that this work needs to be done. So the way that we're going to do this is we are going to make sure that we have those gap statements and that they are clearly, explicitly stated. So before, in the previous point, I wanted you to make sure that each paragraph contained a gap and contained a problem. Here, we're going to make sure that first we directly state that problem. So here we definitely have a sentence that says, however, or something negative that indicates to the reader that this is a problem that still exists that needs to be solved. And then what we're going to do immediately after that statement is include a sentence or a statement or even a half a sentence that says, like, this will be addressed in this proposal, or this will be addressed in aim 1 or aim 2 or whatever, okay? So here, the best way to indicate the need for our research proposal is to have that direct contrast between those 2 points and have those right next to each other in a paragraph. So we're going to have a statement of, hey, this is a problem. And then we're going to have a statement of, hey, this is how we're fixing it. Okay, that right there is going to completely solve that problem of the need for your work being unclear. The next content-based mistake I see in grant proposals is reiterating the problems at the very end of the proposal. Okay, so this might not be so obvious right away of why this is such a big problem, so bear with me. So what we're doing with our proposal is at the beginning, we are setting up a problem. We are setting up, hey, this is things that need to be addressed, and here's how we're going to address them. Then we're going to get through the whole body of our research proposal, and at the end, going back to this being a problem is not actually what we want to do. That brings it all back into this narrow problem. Whereas instead, once we have set up a problem at the beginning, walked through how we want to solve it, instead of ending on reiterating that problem, I still want you to have a conclusion, but I want you instead to have a conclusion that paints a picture of the world with your research successfully completed. What would it look like if this research were done? So instead of just saying, hey, this is an important problem, you can still kind of say that, but you can say, hey, with this research done and completed, this important problem will now look like this. You know, maybe that problem goes away. Maybe this was only one step out of hundreds that you need towards that problem, but that's fine. What we want to do here instead, we want to be hopeful and positive at the end of our grant. Instead of going back to that problem and creating a problem and creating that tension, we want to alleviate that tension. We want to show now what the world would look like with this work done. So things to think about here, again, like I mentioned, paint a picture. What would things look like if this work was completed? What might the world look like if this problem was solved? Why might scientists be excited about somebody solving this problem? Why might non-scientists be excited about somebody solving this problem? So just remember here that the end of your proposal is the part where your reader, your grant reviewer, should be excited about funding your proposal. Don't bring them back into that sort of negative headspace by pointing out the problems again. Encourage that excitement, encourage that, nurture that. Use this ending conclusion part of your grant to instead paint a picture. And finally, the last content-based mistake here is going to be the reader misses the importance of your work. This one is maybe not necessarily its own individual mistake. It includes a lot of things, but luckily, the fix to this is also usually pretty simple. So just like 2 points ago where I talked about the need for the work being unclear, if the importance is missed, it could also be that those gaps are missing, and that is a very common problem here. So go back, make sure that you have clearly stated gaps in the introductory paragraphs, in every introductory paragraph, okay? Also, back that up directly with how this proposal is solving that problem. That right there is already going to help you immediately highlight the importance of this work. Next, the importance could be missed because the introduction is missing a broad introduction. So at the beginning, remember the reader is likely not going to be an expert in our field. Though they may be a scientist, they might not quite understand the overall arching importance of our field. So before we get into paragraphs explaining the importance of our research project and why we're doing this research project, we do want to make sure we have a short opening paragraph to our grant that answers the question of what problem is out there in the world that exists that our entire field of research exists to solve. Okay, so by putting this sort of broad statement, broad opening at the beginning of your introduction, you can make it much more clear why your field exists, which is going to directly help highlight the importance of your work. Finally, going back to just the previous point, another reason why the importance of this grant can be missed is when that conclusion paragraph goes back to the problem. If you instead make that conclusion, the conclusion of your grant be more broad, be more painting a picture of the world with your problem fixed, it's going to make it much more clear why this is important research to fund. So these are the biggest content-based mistakes I see in grant writing. If you have any questions, feel free to include them in the comments. Also, subscribe to the channel to make sure you get the next video when it is released that is going to talk about detail-based mistakes in grant writing. Otherwise, happy writing!